Alright, hey guys, this is Wednesday, April 27th for 7th grade math. Hope y'all did well on the test. We're going to keep moving through here into chapter 11. And so chapter 11 is on equations. And so what I need you to do is look with me on page 440, just at some definitions. So on page 440, it says finding the value of the variable is called solving the equations. Equations are solved by isolating the variable. In other words, getting a variable having a numerical coefficient of 1 as the only value remaining on one side of the equation. Equations work the same way. Basically, you're going to keep equations balanced. What is done to one side of the equation must be done to the other side. The addition property of quality is just you're just going to be adding and subtracting. And then always perform the inverse operation to isolate the variable. So in other words, if it's adding, you're going to subtract. If it's subtracting, you're going to add. Basically, you want to get the zero out. You want to get it to add up to 0 on whatever you're doing. And so we're just going to jump into some problems, and I'll kind of explain the definitions in the problem as we go. So basically, this is number 1. And so the idea when we solve an equation, basically what we're doing is we're saying, okay, what number do I plug into x to make this a true statement? So what number do I plug into x to make this a true statement? And so that is going to be what solving the equation allows us to answer. And so what happens here when we solve these, you're going to want to isolate the x by itself, and it needs to be in our answer, we need to make sure it's just 1x equals a number, not 2x or 5x. It needs to make sure it's 1x. For these, they're all going to be relatively simple, and so we're not going to do that next step. And so for this, I want to basically get the x by itself. So to get x by itself, I have to get rid of this minus 3. So the minus 3 is the problem. I have to get rid of it. And so to get rid of it, I have to basically add 3. Because if I have negative 3, to get rid of that, I have to add 3. And so notice how it's going to be the opposite sign. If this is a negative 3, then I have to add 3 to get rid of it. Because what happens is negative 3 plus 3 gives me a 0, and so that zeroes out. Negative 3 plus 3 zeroes out, so it goes away. Now, whenever I do the left side, I also have to do the right side. So if I added 3 here, I have to add 3 on this other side. So I have to add 3. If I added 3 there, I have to add 3 over here. So that leaves me just the x over here, because the minus 3 plus 3 went to 0. Then on the other side, that leaves me with 6 minus 1 plus 3. Again, here we can add it in the order. And so I can just do 6 minus 1 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. So x equals 8. So again, the concept here is make sure we get an x, just a plain x, and then equals a number. And so whatever you do to the left, you do to the right. Okay, so let's look at number 3 to kind of clean it up a little bit. So 3 says s, and well, first before we go to that, what you can do to check these, to make sure you're right, you just plug your answer into the x, and you should get the same answer. So 8 minus 3 is 5, should equal the same as 6 minus 1, which is 5. So since it checks, it equals, that's how you got to do the check. So here, number 3, you do s minus 9 equals negative 3 times 5. And so what I'm going to do is I have to get this s by itself. So to get the s by itself, I have that negative 9, that's the problem. So if it's a negative 9, that means I'm going to have to add 9. If it's a plus 9, that means you have to subtract 9. You just have to do whatever the opposite is. And so it's a minus, so that means I'm going to have to add 9. Basically that way that goes to 0. And then if I added 9 on the left, that means I have to add 9 on the right. And so I'm going to have to add 9 over here to the right as well. And so order of operations here says do multiplication and then addition. And so I have to do the negative 3 times 5 first. And so negative 3 times 5 would be what? Negative 15. So that's really negative 15 plus 9. And then negative 15 plus 9 is, what would that be? 10, negative 8, no, negative 6. Yeah. So S would equal negative 6. So again, just whatever you do to the left, you do to the right, then just make sure we're doing order of operations. So I have to do the multiplication first, then I can do the addition. So that will take us through 3. If you look at number 5, I will also do it. So number 5 is right here. So number 5 says 2 times 12 minus 10 equals b to the b minus 7. So again, where's the variable? That's what we have to isolate. You have to isolate the variable. And so find the variable. The variable's here. So that's what we're having to isolate. And so to isolate that, it's a negative 7 again. So if it's a negative, I have to add 7. If it's a positive, we subtract. So negative 7 means I have to add 7. Again, you're just want to get the variable by itself, so do the opposite, that zeroes out. So whatever I do to the right, I also have to do to the left. So just make sure we have this clean, because this one is going to work slightly more algebra. That's what I have so far. Just had to add 7 to this other side. Now you just do your order of operations. Order of operations says to do what's in the parentheses first. So 12 minus 10 is 2. So then I have 2 times 2 plus 7 equals our letter B. So then 2 times 2 is 4. Multiplication is next in order of operations. And then 4 plus 7 equals B. And so 4 plus 7 is 11. So 11 equals B. And then we can check that by just plugging 11 into the B and then seeing if both sides are equal. And so they are. And so that would be our answer. And so that would be number 5. We will look at number 7. So 7, notice here, 7, I have 5x minus 4x plus 2 equals 1. So what's the difference in this problem as opposed to these other couple I did? Well, obviously, it's that we have 2 x terms. We have the 5x and the 4x. And so that's going to make it slightly, a little bit different step to begin with, but it's really the same process. And so the first thing I want to do, since I see 2 x terms, the first thing I want to do is go ahead and clean that up and make sure it make that one term. And so basically I want to clean it up by just doing the operation. I have 5 x's, they're like terms, that means we can add or subtract them. And so 5x minus 4x, 5 minus 4 just leaves me with an x. So now my problem is x plus 2 equals 1. So now look at it, x plus 2 equals 1 looks the same as these other ones I've done. I just have one x and then numbers. So the problem here is to get x by itself. So to get x by itself, I have plus 2 this time, so x plus 2. So I have to get rid of that 2. So to get rid of that 2, I have to make it go to 0. To make it go to 0, I have to subtract 2. So 2 minus 2 is 0. So that, if we do that to the left, we also have to do that to the right. So we have to subtract 2 from this other side as well. And so that will give us x on the left. And then 1 minus 2 would be a negative 1. So x would equal negative 1. So that'll take us through there. I think I should be okay from there. Let me look. You have a few with fractions, but again, it stays the same. You just have to know how to add the fractions together, so you need to make sure you have a common denominator when you add fractions. When you multiply fractions, again, you're going to do numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, or you can try to cross-cancel. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but you need to just make sure you remember that. So again, when you multiply fractions, you multiply numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, or you can cross-cancel. So like 24, you're going to have to do that. Or if you're adding fractions, like 22, is where you're going to be adding or subtracting fractions, you're going to have a common denominator to be able to do that. 16, again, just the fractions thing, you're just going to have to make sure you do that correctly. Outside of that, that's pretty much the lesson. And so, just a brief review before I let y'all go. The concept is we need to get the variable by itself. So to get the variable by itself, we have to add or subtract the numbers over. So Once we have, whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side. To get something to zero out, you simply add the opposite. So it's a negative number here, we have to add 9. It's a positive number, then you have to subtract it and then move it over. And so that should get y'all started. If you have any questions, again, get up with me. Trying to keep it as brief as possible, that way I don't bore you to death. But sometimes we have to go a little bit longer with these because I want to make sure you get it. But if you don't, make sure you get up with me and we'll clean it up one-on-one. All right, thank y'all.